Hey, y'all, welcome to the Unqualified Podcast with Leon Wilson. That's me. The day is early, and I know I'm late by one day. Typically, I post on Sundays. Just bear with me. Yesterday was incredibly busy, and honestly, I left the church long enough to go eat with a bunch of church folk, and then next thing you know, I'm back at the church studying and getting ready for my evening sermon, and I could not get even to the house until later. It was after 9 o'clock by the time I got home, so it was a very busy day, but it was a glorious day. The Lord was doing things at our church and still is, and we couldn't be more excited about the way that he's directing us and all those kinds of things. We are having service currently in a new building, a newer building, and those folks have been so kind as to let us use the building, and we're just incredibly grateful for that. It's it's closer, but it's also got more facilities for us to love on our kids and all those kinds of things. So we're able to break off and just have a time. So it's wonderful to be able to do that. Anyways, I'm excited about the chapters in my life and everything, but also one of the things that I've been able to do here lately is spend a lot more time with hurting people, and you would be surprised at how many people are hurting and don't have any resources to cling to, or don't feel like they do. And let me explain. The grief hits a family, tragedy hits families, sickness hits families, all kinds of things, and it's just an enormous blow to your life when you have to stop and consider all these other variables and things like that. When I lost my job here recently, there was a myriad of things that have gone on, and I'm not necessarily going to get into specifics or anything like that. It was very political and all these and all that kind of stuff, and it took me not by the surprise you think it would. I knew because the Lord had just gave me the unction, and I just knew that that the time there was coming to an end. And it's not that I gave up. I was, I was still doing what I needed to do and obeying the responsibilities that I had and what have you. But at the same time, I was planning for that revenue stream, if you will, to come to an end. And and my wife and I had talked about it and all that, because I could feel, honestly, the favor of the Lord lifting off of that place, and not off of me, but off of that place, because he was the blessing and the provision that he had raining on me and on our household was everywhere but there. And I had even said it to my previous boss, like, I feel like everything in my life except for my job is going incredibly well. Couldn't be better. And that was the truth. And so back in February, when I had, my birthday, I'd come back and I was being held responsible for some things that I had no control over. And then having to rectify a bunch of stuff that, blindsided me. And so all of that, was a hit, and it was just roll after roll. I was punch after punch and all that kind of stuff. And it was just nonstop, it seemed like. And I could tell that I was under attack in that area of my life, and that season was coming to an end. And so me and the wife had talked and everything else, and we had started planning and budgeting and things like that to get ready for that particular situation. And not to liken myself to Joseph, but it was kind of like, Joseph saying, hey, we got 7 years of plenty. Let's pile it up because we got 7 years of probably famine coming behind, or we got 7 years of famine coming right behind this. And so I had talked to my wife and we started planning for it. And then, once I lost my job, it was like almost immediately I found myself available to go and needed at ER and at a different ER or this hospital or this place. I was speaking at this event, or I was going here, I was going there, and all this other. And it was like, it wasn't like, it was, ministry was taking the place of what I thought was my life, because I wasn't meant for that other life. That other life was serving the purpose to lead up to where I'm meant to be. And even now, months later, the Lord has opened up, new events and things like that, new opportunities for our church and for the ministry. And we're steadily moving forward for that, growing, and it's His provision. It's His will being done. If everything had been going great at my job and the season was opening on the ministry side, would I have left my job in order to facilitate the will for the Lord in my life by going and doing or just walking away from the job? And that's the question we have to ask ourselves. Everyone wants to be exempt from problems. Everyone wants to be exempt from drama. Everybody wants to be exempt from health issues and all these other kinds of things. But everybody also wants to be able to testify to how good the Lord's doing. We want the testimony, but we don't want the problem. And that is putting the cart before the horse. How else can you say the Lord got me through something if there's nothing to get through? Hey, the Lord got me through it, but there's no it. You've got to face the problems. And guess what? It's going to be hard. You're going to not like it. No one likes cancer. That word is like the curse word of the medical world. But if the Lord gets you through the cancer, and next thing you know, you're helping someone else get through their season with the cancer and all this other, or in some cases, you're helping someone, comforting them during their season of cancer up until their last breath. Guess what? You're doing exactly what you're supposed to do, and you're acting within the will for the Lord in your life. And we got to have those moments. You got to have the pain. We want the Lord to take the pain out. Lord, take the pain, take the grief, take the struggle off of my life. And I'm not making fun. I'm just saying, this is us. I'm that person too. Trust me, I'm that person too. I'm human. I'm human. We want God to not let us hurt, not let us be discomforted, not let us struggle. We want financial security. We want people who are dramatic to just stop. We don't want them out of our life. We want to keep them, but we don't want them to be so toxic or toxic at all. We want all of the cake and low-fat icing. That's what we want in our life. And guess what? It ain't like that, because it's not supposed to be like that. If you had everything your way, you'd be living in your heaven on earth, and you wouldn't have any hope for a heaven. But the truth is, struggles are going to happen. Loss is going to happen. And you have to process it. You have to develop a way through it. See the path through it. God's got your hand, and if you're holding His hand and you're taking the steps, He's going to give you the strength needed for the steps, and you're going to be able to push through. And then when you do, when you get to the other side and you're going to ask yourself, how did I do that? The answer will be so obvious. You didn't. God did. You were able to step because He provided the strength, because He provided the direction, because He gave you the shoes that didn't wear in the wilderness. Guess what? You're only where you are because the Lord opened up the opportunities and developed you in a way that you were able to withstand the elements and get to the other side. The Israelites, when crossing the Red Sea, walked across on dry land, but they walked. They had to take steps. They had to walk. You don't get to the other side without walking. How many miles was that? I don't know. Look it up. But it was more than one, and we don't want to walk 1 mile, but we got to. They were toting stuff, and they were pulling stuff, and they were pushing stuff, and they had babies and youngins and all this other, and they were having to heave all that stuff and tote it to the other side. And guess what? They got to the other side. God held back the water. God made the ground dry. He gave them fire by night and a cloud by day. He held back the enemy to a degree. But guess what? When that last Israelite got to the other side, they would all be able to testify, hey, we're here because God got us here. And then they watched their enemies get swallowed up by the water. We cannot have the safety through the lion's den without the lion's den. The threat has to be there. The problems have to be there. You got to get tossed to them, or else you got no testimony. Where's the testimony? We want all that without the problems. Give me a testimony with a side of happiness and glee and health and provisions, lots of money, heavy on the money, but no problems. Save the problems, hold the problems, 86 the problems. And that's not life. That's not real life, y'all. And I know that's not the easiest thing in the world to hear, but that's the truth. And you're going to get it straight from me. But let me tell you the other side of things. I know several people right now suffering through grief. It's some sudden loss, some loss they kind of saw coming, and I've said these words. If I've said them once, I've said them 100 times. I'm saying it to you right now. There's no wrong way to process grief except for one, and that's to do it without God. Grief is a tough, tough cookie. No one wants to take a bite. Everybody would love to be able to go through their entire life and be the only one their family lost. I wanted to die before everybody. But guess what? It ain't always going to be that way. I've seen some folks have to put babies in the ground. I sang at a funeral not too long ago, and that casket was the size of a cooler, and it was sad to watch. It was sad to be there. And that mommy and daddy, they were as broken gets. Been to several funerals of mamas who had to put their husbands in the ground right there in front of their kids. And that's tough. Same thing on the other side, husbands who have put mamas in the ground, wives in the ground, and folks losing their husbands and wives and children and fathers and mothers and all those, close people to them. And I can tell you one thing, the people who try to bottle it up and and not process it are the ones that become bitter and unhealthy. Grief can be a thief that you hand your joy to. And when grief takes that joy, you can't blame anybody but yourself. But at the same time, there's only one way to get it back. And that's leaning on God. And He has never left you. And He won't. If you're saved, if you are a child of God, if you are saved through what Jesus did, the finished work of the cross, if you are saved, then the Lord is there for you 100% of the time. We put Him on a shelf and we say, God, I'll get to you here in a minute. I just got to freak out a little bit first. And then we start freaking out and we forget God's right where we left Him, and we start trying to process things on our own, and oftentimes in a very unhealthy way, because you cannot trust your heart. Your heart's wicked, and your heart is conceited, and it's full of vanity, and we want to put us first. And what breaks my heart is to see good people, just precious people, get so bottled up and bitter, or even worse yet, they start bashing themselves and beating themselves up and turning everything into such a them facing arrow, and next thing you know, they're punishing themselves for a loss they had no control over. And I guess my number one direction and encouragement would be this: the sooner that you realize, and this is hard to hear, but the sooner you realize it's not about you, but it's really just about God, and you get even closer to Him and refuse to allow the enemy to separate you from your communication and your commune with God, everything starts falling back into place. And next thing you know, you're healing in a healthy way. And I'm not saying that healing is going to come overnight. No. How arrogant of us to think that healing can come where heartbreak is overnight. We're very arrogant if we think that way. What I'm saying is this: the moment you decide and commit to keeping God right square in the center of it all, and you process everything through the lens of God or the lens of that Bible, I promise you, it'll start making a lot more sense. And just like I told a sweet lady today, I'm proud of you. The moment you decide, I'm keeping God in the middle of this, get your pastor involved. Get your pastor involved. And I mean, you can get a hold of me. My email is in the links and all that, and you can get a hold of me. I'm all for it. Follow me on Facebook and Leon Wilson on Facebook, and then also you can check me out on Instagram, Leon Slick Wilson. I'm on TikTok, Leon Slick Wilson. Like, share, subscribe. Hit that notification bell, and you can comment on this, and I'll comment back, and then we can. I mean, I'll long distance pastor you. I do not have an ego, and I'm accessible. I'm not. I don't pastor a mega church, and even if I did, I'd have to do my best to remain accessible. But don't process it alone. Get a team around you. And if you don't know anybody, get in church. Get God involved. Do not process grief by yourself. It's unhealthy. And all it will do is cause you more grief and pain. And it'll be a struggle. And it's hard to get out of that. It's a vicious cycle. Help yourself. And the biggest thing you can do to help yourself is get God involved. Listen, I love you. God loves you. This has been the Unqualified Podcast with Leon Wilson.